Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm doing a reaction on Story of a King Who Was Reborn as a Deer, Reincarnation Lessons. So a king who was reborn as a deer. I don't know anything about it, so let's go give this video a shot. No CC.
Let me just count it. It's a nice story. King Bharat was a very pious, very lovely king of India, ancient India. Very spiritual. He led a very positive life. Very righteous, honest king. Now, King Bharat, in those days, they said that when you reach certain age, you give up your kingdom and walk into the forest. Aranyak, go into the forest and become a hermit. So you give up all your kingdom, your wealth, and say, now I'm going to spend my rest of my life thinking about higher spiritual things, no material world. So King Bharat went into the forest. He built a little cottage for himself. Look, he's a king. He built a little cottage. He's just spending his time in meditation. This is how he discovered all this Purushukta came out. He would spend time in contemplation, meditation, and things were going very well. He was hitting highs. Then one day, before he started to sit down for meditation, there's a little stream of water passing by his hut. That's how he gets his water supply. And before he went into meditation, he suddenly saw a female deer come, and she was pregnant. And while she was trying to cross the stream, she toppled over and she died. And she gave birth to a little baby deer. And the baby deer was going to be taken away, swept away by the water. And King Bharat is a compassionate person. So he got up, he picked up the baby deer and brought it to his little hut. He said, I can't let this baby deer die. So he started to feed it, give it grass, look after it, tend it, and he fell in love with this little baby deer. And the baby deer would stay close to the hut, chew grass around the hut, keep looking at this King Bharat and be very friendly. Now King Bharat developed tremendous attachment to this deer. You see, because he's like a child. He's been born and brought up in front of him. He developed attachment to this deer. The story goes, look, this is a story, but enjoy the story.
Real quick, before he goes to finish that, I thought it was a punishment. So I do remember sometime, I can't remember when exactly, but there are different levels of reincarnations, animals being lower than humans. So if you were born as an animal, that means you've done bad karma, if I remember correctly. Then if you've done very good karma, you'd become, a celestial or a god or something like that. Like be on the heaven, should I say, not like the god or the gods that are well known, perhaps, I don't know, but just that, the humans is the mid-level, I guess, and then you have animals and I don't know what else underneath it, honestly. Then you have the different levels above, the heavens and stuff, but even all these is still part of the reincarnation area, where you want to no longer be part of this reincarnation cycle, but even gods are part of it. So him being reborn as a deer, I thought it was going to be like a punishment. It's like, he seems very nice and kind and gave up his kingdom. I was like, why is he being punished? At least that's what I think initially. Again, humans are right here and animals, I believe, are below, as far as I remember and know.
The story goes, when King Bharat died, he was reborn as a deer. It's because the last thing that Bhagavad Gita says, the last thing that you think about before you die becomes you, or if you like, this is where you are projected. So the poor man, he was a major king, was projected as a deer, and he was born as a deer. And the story is very interesting. Take it with a pinch of salt. Always take story with a pinch of salt. But he's giving the same idea this young girl is saying. Animal-human relationship. And then this deer, the story goes, because of his character was this high philosophy principle, even though he was born in a deer's body, that character was still there, trapped in a deer's body. So how did he show his character? It only would go where the hermits were meditating and chanting the Vedic. The deer would just go and live near there and listen. He doesn't know why, because he's a deer. He can't understand. He spent a whole life as a deer, but deliberately grazing near the hermitages. And then when that deer passed away, he was reborn again as a human. And when he was reborn as a human, he recalled what mistake he made last time. He associated with the deer and got caught. He had to go into an extra cycle. So he said, this time, no nonsense. So from the time he was already knowledgeable, high, because came from his previous life. His character was still there. But now, because he had learned a harsh lesson, he decided not to speak to anybody. He said, I don't want to be attached to anybody, including my family. So this man kept himself aloof. He wouldn't get attached to his father, mother, his brothers. He had lots of brothers. He would not even talk to the brothers. He said, I don't want to be attached, so I just going to keep quiet. Zoom, zip.
Oh, okay. So is it because towards the end, I guess his punishment was he was so kind to a deer that he became attached to the deer. Became attached to the deer. I mean, it's kind of strange. It doesn't seem right. Again, as far as my understanding is in terms, I can't remember which particular Hindu following believes in these levels of reincarnations. I think Buddhism does as well. I think, or maybe a certain sect of Buddhism. I'm not sure. Again, I haven't really explored too deep into these other ways of life philosophy. Yes, ways of life. But let me know. I mean, is this story? I mean, I don't mean that. Is this story like really happened? But is this a story that's being told, an unknown story, kind of like what's the story? Hold on. Like, oh my gosh, what's a childhood story? Three Little Pigs? I don't know. I don't know if that's known over there, or Cinderella, I guess, like the Disney stories, I guess. Man, I don't know. I don't know if there's any stories that I remember from my childhood. I honestly, yeah, I don't think I was ever told stories when I was a child. Huh. Now that I think about it. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's something new I discovered about myself today. But yeah, I guess that's the reason why I was never read stories in bed. I never asked for it. Interesting. Anyways.
Because he had very rough experience being born as a deer. He doesn't want to have the second time. He said, nothing doing anymore with society, nothing with anybody, any other human being. I'm going to focus on myself, Atman, and nothing else will get in my way. So he would not speak to anybody, and the wives of the brothers would say, what an idiot. He's an idiot. They call him Jada Bharat. Means a thick Bharat. So they said, this is a man who should not be even fed by us. Why should we look after this madman? He's not speaking. He doesn't have any, intelligence at all. So they were mistreating him. And this man said, nothing doing. I'm not going to speak. So he lived like that. This is a story of Jada Bharat. This is a very lovely story. And this person kept mum quiet until almost a long time in his life, until an incident occurred where a king was pushing him hard. I won't go into the big story. Let me just touch. It's a nice story. Let me carry on. One day the king's palki, palkin, where the king people are carrying, where it was passing by the village, and one of the palki carrier developed some kind of illness, stomachache or something, and he couldn't carry. So they look around the village, who can help the king get the palki to his kingdom? And they saw this Bharat. He was quite tough and quite large. They said, catch him. He's this idiot, but it doesn't matter. Let's catch him and he will carry the palki. So they carry the palki and they were walking. And Bharat said, no problem. Without argument, he would carry. And while they were walking, the palki was rocking a little bit. So the king got angry. Why is it rocking? Stop the palki. He said, who is rocking the thing? Bharat, this man is moving, kind of sidestepping and rocking the palki. Why are you doing this? You are an idiot. And when you said this is this lovely story. The stories of Hindu tradition are so lovely. Then for the first time, this Bharat, who had not spoken in his whole life, said, let me now tell him what is what. He said, oh king, who are you calling a fool? If you are calling this body a fool, the same thing that made up this body has made up your body. And then he started developing the philosophy of Vedanta. And he said, the reason why I was moving away because there were ants on the pathway and I didn't want to step on them. The same thing that is coming out through here is coming out through that life. I was avoiding stepping on it. So finally he gave this highest philosophy. And the king said, oh, you are a great Mahatma. What I made you carry my palki. Let me touch your feet and sit at your feet. And the Bharat said, no more attachment. I walk away. After opening his mouth, he disappeared back. He doesn't want to interact. This is a lovely story of Bharat. But anyway, I'm sorry, digressing a lot, but nice, colorful story. Stories, take them with a pinch of salt, whether they occurred or not. The principle they are focusing on, this idea of do not associate yourself too much with any particular animal, is simply because, you see, have you noticed, forget about being reborn, even when you see some dogs and their owners, have you noticed they start to show each other's character? Have you noticed when they're walking or talking or sometimes their hairstyle, they begin to start resemble each other? You say, what's going on here? It's very worrying, especially in England. You'll find that. Haven't you seen some yobs going with a Rockweiler? They kind of match up, the characters match up. The Rockweiler, and the yob goes, with those studs here. Going.
That's isn't that from what's that game? My gosh, I can't remember what it's called. I don't really ever play it. I played one version of it, and that was it, just because my friends play it. But I don't really play it. Saints Row? No, not Saints Row. It's Saints Row's a ripoff of that. Anyways, I can't believe they used that one.
For a walk, and they're both walking the same way. You look from behind, they both seem to say, you see, don't be too attached to this. Look, we're not saying pets are bad. But we are saying don't get attached to higher things, not lower things, higher things. So attach yourself to a great prophet. Say that I like this, because then you'll fly off. Otherwise, if you attach yourself to the lower animal, you'll fly off there. And Hinduism says it's possible.
That's kind of sad, I will say. And in America, a lot of people get attached to their pets. They see them as family, more so than just animals. So it's kind of a sad thing to say that just because you get attached to an animal that you'll become an animal. And of course, what he says about the any kind of story, take it with a grain of salt, though, for sure. And also, the most important things about story is the lessons to be learned, not whether they're true or not necessarily, but the lessons to be learned. Stories are sometimes exaggerated, sometimes are, how to say, meant to make you feel great or terrified, but at the end, you feel encouraged or courageous. It's meant to teach you a lesson. But anyways, I'll say it's kind of sad though. Let me know if this is a story that's told in your particular country, because trying to think of my own country and what stories. I don't know of any stories. That is kind of crazy. Huh. Anyways. Yeah. Anyways, let me know if this story is something that you've heard before. Is this something that's been told around that most people know, probably? Also, kind of sucks that you can't. I don't know. I find it kind of strange, being just because he was thinking of a deer before he died. Like, you generally think of your family and all that when you die. Last thoughts. You think of the things you cherish the most. I guess it is technically attachment. When you cherish human people. So I don't know. I cherish people. You could say that actually. You could say that I cherish people. If I and what I mean by that, I'm stuttering a lot. So what I mean by that, if I were to believe, say, Brahman, right? That means me believing in people, be believing in Brahman. As in, we as humans are gods, is the God. And therefore worshipping the God. By cherishing the God, by doing kindness to the God. It's really weird, but I wouldn't see it that way. My thoughts on that is just that we are all part of this universe. We all we have to live here. This is our making right now. How we treat each other, that's how the world's gonna be. If we start treating each other like garbage, the world's gonna be garbage. And again, I'm not going to sit there and say that, oh yeah, if we're all nice and kind, everyone's going to be wonderful, the world's going to be the greatest place ever. No. There's always going to be a few people out there who are always going to be garbage. There's going to be a few people out there who are going to be super delusional and be taken advantage of all the time because they're so kind and generous. I feel sorry for them, and I don't feel sorry for trash people. But it is very much true that this is the world we live in. And how we rule it as us human beings will be how we make it. If we are garbage to each other, it will be garbage. If we're kind to each other, it will be kind. It will never be perfect. But anyways, that's my reaction to the story of a king who was reborn as a deer. Kind of weird. Last thoughts deer popped up as a deer. Anyways, if you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.